I'm so excited to welcome onto the First Time Facilitator podcast, Rose Allett from Start the Conversation. Rose, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Leanne. Thanks for having me.
We spoke a couple of months ago, I believe. Gosh, the time goes really quickly. And the work that you do just inspired me to reach out and invite you onto the show. We don't really talk about this topic so often, and I'd love to talk more about it with our guests and for our listeners to chime in as well. Rose, can you share a bit about what you do today and maybe some pivots or career moments that led you down this path of Start the Conversation?
Yeah, sure. So basically, in a nutshell, I think I've just about managed to find my elevator pitch. I teach people to talk about suicide in a way that then they can have a conversation with somebody that they're worried about. So it's a conversation that could save a life. And I've been doing it for many years face to face. Of course, for the last 12 months, it's been entirely on Zoom. So that's been a huge learning curve for most of us facilitators. And yeah, it's been a great challenge, but I'm really enjoying it. And we are reaching people all over the world now, training people, upskilling people with these skills. So yeah, it's quite niche. You know, talking about suicide is something that people find very difficult, understandably, because most of us have some sort of connection with it. It brings up all sorts of feelings and emotions and difficult feelings and emotions. So yeah, it's something that I've come to over the years. You asked about pivotal moments of things that have kind of led me here. It's almost like everything that's happened in my life has sort of got me to this point, really. Like everybody, I think, that works in this field, I've had personal experience around suicide. So we lost a really close family friend when I was a teenager, and I think that was pivotal. That's my first moment where I sort of realized that, well, suicide's a thing. I think I knew before that it was even something that could happen. And then so for the last 20 years, sort of age, from age 20, I started getting involved in volunteering with the Samaritans over here in the UK. I think in Australia, you've got Lifeline, it's the equivalent. And then, yeah, working as a teacher, counsellor, and I guess other pivotal moments was working as a counsellor, mostly with young people, and starting to realise that self-harm and suicide are just sort of, they became almost my bread and butter. It sounds awful to say, but I was having these conversations daily with my teenage clients. And yeah, Leanne, it was really hard to hear. It's sort of, I realised how just everywhere this sort of stuff is, these thoughts are for people. And we know that conversations, I know you're on board with this idea, conversations help. They're talking about suicide in particular is the best form of prevention that we've got. So we need to feel confident to have these conversations, because the fear and stigma that stops us talking is what's dangerous. That's how people sadly end up dying, because they're not able to talk with somebody who's not going to tell them what to do or judge them.
Judgment. Yeah, we can talk. That's probably another podcast episode on its own. It's interesting that you say it is a niche, but at the same time, it is universal, isn't it?
Right.
It's a very interesting topic. On the show, we talk a lot about how do you create safe environments, and usually it's in the context of a soft skills workshop like communication, or you're working with a team, and the stakes maybe aren't so high. I know we're not talking about mental health first aid, we're talking more about starting a conversation, but you would have extremely vulnerable moments in your workshops, whether in person or online. Can you talk us through, you said you were a counsellor and then now you facilitate these conversations. So what's working in terms of creating that environment, particularly on a Zoom call where I believe your workshops are about 90 minutes?
They are, yeah. I've got a 90-minute. Yeah, I mean, this is something I'm working in partnership with a wonderful charity called Ollie's Future, and together we prioritize safety, because working over the years face to face, as I said, everyone in the room has some connection to suicide. So it's easier to create safety when you are in the room with people. You can have agreements, you can read body language, right? So you can sense if somebody's struggling, or they can pass you a little note and say, can we talk in the break? And you have these little moments. And on Zoom, we don't know people, they could be anywhere in the world. So yeah, creating safety it's absolutely paramount for us. So how do we do it? We've got like a really robust safeguarding procedure that we've put in place, and it starts right from registration. So when people sign up, and we use Eventbrite, but we've customized our questions when people register. So it's not just your normal sort of name, email, number. We have something that we call the readiness question, explaining that this is a topic which can be very triggering for people, and to confirm one of three options. And one is, yes, I understand this is training, not therapy, because in my experience, we do have people who come along and then want to share, of course, all their personal stories, which need to be told, but not in a 90-minute session with a group of other people. Then the second option is, yes, I'm ready for this, but I would like a phone call first, from the organisers. And the third option is, actually, on reflection, this isn't for me today, or this isn't for me this week. And it's really interesting having that opt-out option, especially when we're doing closed sessions for organisations. Like sometimes we run them for schools or corporate, and even if it's sort of pitched as sort of semi obligatory, that's not even a word, is it?
I like that concept. Yeah. No, it's not mandatory, but it's somewhere in between. Yeah,
right. Then staff are able to go, actually, you know what, I might have some personal stuff going on and this isn't for me. And it's so great that they can have that option and self-select. So that's part of our safeguarding, but then it carries on. I mean, during the sessions, for example, even though it's only 90 minutes, it's never just the trainer in the room. We've always got a support team of two, and one is the emotional support person, who's, again, we've trained on our team. They're not just anybody. They've had some rigorous training and a very rigorous safeguarding flowchart. And then we have a tech person. So if anyone's struggling with their Zoom, whatever, it's not going to impact the training. The trainer can just carry on giving those really important lessons, thinking about the words they're using. So there's a real togetherness sort of, and then participants report back in their feedback of feeling very supported. There to help them in real time.
Yeah, there's so many things to unpack there. I love that you talk about that readiness question, and even the option to, hey, I don't really feel like it today or this week, I might opt out. I think that's really clever, particularly when you talk about that environment where corporations do contact you, but also having those established roles and giving some certainty to your participants straight up front. If it's a tech problem, go here. I think people like that, because I think the worst thing would be if you're feeling triggered by something and you've got to interrupt the session to talk directly to the facilitator that's leading it. I can see that being really tricky as well, and people maybe not sharing.
Yeah, and it goes really deep. Like if somebody just sort of drops off the call and they haven't let us know why, we'll give them a phone call. Like we'll call them right away, for example. There's a lot in place, and we let people know that as well. We do regular temperature check-ins with the polls as well. We make it quite as interactive as we can on Zoom. And there's so much more to it, Leanne. I could keep going on.
Please do.
In the intro, like we always acknowledge, for example, that the experience and the pain in the room. We acknowledge that everybody in this Zoom room, if you like, and we encourage people to sort of look each other in the eye and sort of wave and honor each other as human beings, as fellow humans with experience. We acknowledge that, and we say to look after yourselves and what that means, and how sometimes, quite often actually, when we deliver this sort of training, people do have these feelings, uncomfortable feelings, and often regret and guilt comes up for people, because maybe they're learning some skills and they realize, or they have this thought, oh, I wish I'd known this sooner. I wish I'd done this training years ago, and maybe I could have done something different. And so we acknowledge that, and we say it right from the start. If you have these feelings, that's normal, that's okay, but be really gentle with yourself. We can't go back in time. We did what we could with the skills we had at the time. And so I think naming all this right from the start, people appreciate, because they're coming at it with these anxieties, right? People come knowing they know this stuff. They're like, I can feel, I'm worried about, I don't know, my brother, my colleague, my I passed someone on a park bench the other day and I didn't know what to do and I was worried about them. So they want to empower themselves with these skills, but there's so much fear around just learning this stuff. So I think naming it from the beginning is part of our safeguarding as well. And then, of course, it follows on after. We do phone calls if necessary. It's very robust. It's really safe.
It is really robust. So, and my question for you is, like, you've obviously honed this robust process over the years that you've been delivering it. Is it very different from what it was when you first started? And where have you been getting inspiration to have all these safeguards in place and to call out objections early? Where have you got your inspiration from?
It's not come over the years. I mean, all this online stuff has literally just been
It's
COVID
like,
related.
bang.
Right?
Wow, it's encouraging. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's come from years of working in the mental health field and working as a counsellor. I used to run mental health projects down here. I live in Brighton in the UK, on the south coast, and one project I ran for years is called Safe Space, and it's actually a great idea. Every city should have one, right? It's like a little hall right in the middle of the city, and anybody can come in up to like 4 a.m. So we get people coming in, staggering in, pissed from, can I say pissed? From from clubs, you know, they've lost their bag, they've lost their mates, they've lost their phone. And we would be a safe space. We'd keep people, we would give them coffee, we'd sober them up, we'd get them home safely, and we'd reunite them. Anyway, so then managing that for years and working there, I guess, gave me a lot of insight into safety and respect. You know, it's all about not taking away somebody's liberties, you know, making sure that people are a part of the process of keeping themselves safe as well. So yeah, it's just all been about translating it over to Zoom, I guess.
Yeah, that's it, becoming quite creative in that process.
Yeah.
And I love that, because even though it is a 90-minute session, it's very tempting. I'm sure there's a lot of content that you're covering, but you recognize the importance of having these processes in place and how it all creates that environment of being supportive with each other. Because we are on the topic of suicide, just in case any listeners are faced with this problem, I think it would be helpful if you've got one tip that you can share in terms of opening up a conversation with someone that they fear is going through this. Is there one tip?
If somebody is
like got a relative
or if they're worried about a person, I mean, yeah. So if you're worried about a person, I mean, yes, my advice is start the conversation. How do we do that? Because often we're afraid of people getting offended or getting it wrong. Maybe we've got it wrong and we're going to make things worse. Well, first of all, we're not going to make things worse. You know, it's going to bring relief if we show that we care about somebody. But a great way to start that conversation is to start with fact. Start by saying, I'm worried about you, and I'm worried about you for these reasons. I've seen, you know, you withdraw, or I've seen that you're drinking more than usual, and I've heard you say, you know, what's the point, a few times. So if we're just saying fact, you know, I've seen this and I've heard this, there's no judgment in there. I'm just saying what I've seen, and I'm following it up with, and so therefore I'm really worried about you. And it's really hard to offend someone when we've actually just been so open and showed that we care. Yeah, and then we sit with them, we hear some of their story. And if I was to say one of the biggest tips, if there's any question in your mind that maybe suicide is on their mind, the thing we need to do is ask them outright and say, you know, I'm worried about you for these reasons. And sometimes when people act like this or say these things, they're thinking about suicide. You know, is that something that's been on your mind? And it sounds absolutely terrifying. People think we're going to put the idea in somebody's heads. We're not that powerful. We can't do that. But it is the single most important thing we can do to keep somebody safe from suicide. And if we hear that, yes, actually, I have been considering it, you know, not to panic and just say, right, well, look, we're in this together. Let's talk about this. They're safer because they've told you instantly. They're safer. And it's about we now, like, we're in this together. What can we do to get you the support you need? Because I'm only one person. You know, often it leads to, well, don't tell anyone else. I told you. I don't want anyone else to know. Well, look, I'm only one person, and together now we need some others who can support us in this. Lots of we and us, you know, there's no them and us when it comes to suicide. We're all in this together.
Wow, thank you. I just thought it'd be a good opportunity just to share with listeners that that have this question, and for you to share that as part. Thanks for sharing your IP with us on this.
That's only part of it. You still need to come on.
You've got to watch the other 90 minutes, be part of it.
There's so much more to learn.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Rose, something that I talk about a lot in the podcast with guests is energy and how important it is and you can dictate that as a facilitator, whether you want calm or warmth. I feel like I've met you, but we've just been on these 2 virtual calls. You exude warmth and radiance and comfort. Thank you. I'm just wondering, is that part of, have you honed that? Is that deliberate, or is that just who you are as Rose? Just that type of person? Yeah.
That's really sweet to hear. And I don't know how to respond to that. I honed it.
I'm only human. Yeah.
It's definitely not something I've consciously, I feel quite embarrassed.
Oh,
I've not
sorry. Yeah.
worked on no, that's just me, that's just who I
Yeah.
am. But I think as well, through the work that I've done over the years, 20 or so years in this sort of in some capacity or other, working with others, you just learn to or I've learned to I don't know, listen, hopefully as much as I speak, less so on this. I know I'm doing most of the talking, but I guess that's the idea here.
Yes.
I guess it's just, you know what, as a facilitator, but also as a person, but if we're talking about being a facilitator, it's really about remembering that the people on the screen in front of you, or the people in the room in front of you, I'm not the expert coming in and teaching them something. It's really like, we're all human beings and we're all learning. I feel like I learn just as much when I'm facilitating as well as when I'm a participant in a group. So I think coming at it with that attitude and showing people that helps people to feel not, the nice sort of byproduct, if you like, the side effect is that people feel relaxed and feel honored and respected, and like they have a place in the room, whether it is literally a room or a Zoom room. It's like, I deserve to be here too because I've got something to give.
Yeah.
I've been alive on this planet and I've learned a thing or two about being human, and I think that's really what this is all about. And so that comes across, as I've been told, with energy in when I'm teaching.
Oh, definitely. And I was going to say, because if I was working in a corporate and they signed me up for this suicide training about starting the conversation, I would also probably feel a bit of apprehension. But then to jump on and to see you again, because of your, sorry to throw the compliments down, but it would just immediately think, oh gosh, this is going to be okay. Like I feel okay even just from sensing that. So I think it just reiterates that point around energy and how so important it is. I just had a conversation previously today with someone that said, sometimes we need to, because we might be running a workshop and we might have things going on in our own lives, and putting that game face on can be a challenge as well. Not to say that through COVID, all of us have had our own struggles and things going on. So how do you manage your state and energy before you're on to running a workshop if life is taking over? And do you sort of segment it? What do you do?
Yeah, God, that's such a great question, isn't it? Because there's only so much. You don't want to give away too much of your own troubles, because then people sort of start worrying about you, and in 90 minutes you haven't got that time to build that relationship. So I'm a big sort of yogi. I do a lot of yoga, I do a lot of deep breathing and water, all that sort of general sort of cleansing stuff, and even if I'm only walking up to my attic room where I often teach, or a different room of this, the house, I guess there's a real, I sort of see that as a transition into game face, maybe. Yes, I don't really see it like that, or do you know what, I need, this is such an important topic, I want my participants to get the best of me, and I want them to learn the most they can. There isn't really room for anything else. So but I guess the reverse has to happen as well. So that's what I'm also very conscious of, because in the past, certainly as a counsellor, or some of the other work I've done, I would take work home with me, and I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking about clients or whatnot. My training was phenomenal at really helping me to create those boundaries, but I think now, training as we all are on Zoom and so on, we've got to be able to then close the laptop and leave it there as well. And then return back fully to your real life, or not even your real life, your other part of your life. It's this is also real life.
That's right.
It's all real. If it's virtual, it's real now. So I guess it's being conscious about it, not letting the boundaries blur. A lot of work on boundaries, I think, in this sort of area, because even back in the day when I was working more face to face with people thinking about suicide, when I was doing more frontline work and having these conversations daily with people who didn't want to be here anymore, I had to just we have to all the compassion in the world, yes, but also there's got to be some sort of barrier. I remember one of my counseling teachers describing it like, imagine a mesh, and it can be anything. Sometimes it's a brick wall, right? Because you need to keep yourself really protected. But with clients, it's more often like a lace or well, you decide what it is, right? It could be like a beautiful net curtain, or one of those bead curtains if you're into that sort of thing, or whatever it is. So there's something separating you, and it means the compassion can flow fully. You can feel for somebody, but you have to always think, but that is their life and this is my life, and I'm not them. And that's that's good for them and it's good for me, because you can't merge into somebody's pain. It's their pain, and yes, I feel it because I'm sitting with you, but it's not my pain. Am I describing that right? I don't know.
Yeah, I really like that vision of whatever I'm seeing, like like a sheer curtain, perhaps.
Right. Whatever it is you, and it's going to be different according to whoever's sitting on the other side, right? Whoever you're talking to, because if it's a family member or a client, it might feel like it's made of a different material somehow.
It's a really nice
but
metaphor.
You kind of get to choose it, and it's a visualization that's really helped me over the years. And incredibly, I found it works even on Zoom. You can really still, I didn't think that it would be possible. I had to adapt so quickly to communicating in this way, and it's opened a lot of doors. Things like this wouldn't have happened without COVID, but yeah, it's incredible that I think you can still feel that full connection with somebody. Even through,
it's remarkable, isn't it? Like, a lot of my great mates are people that I've never even met before. Just so you can have an active social life in the comfort of your home. It's fantastic. It is interesting. Like, I was talking to very early on the podcast a guest called Greg Mitchell, and he was saying, he goes, doesn't matter how awesome your workshop was, how great the experience was, and the feedback. He goes, I guarantee 12 hours later there will just be some massive sugar low. Like, you'll just feel this, like, what could I have done differently? And what you're talking about, I found when I was facilitating in real life, the whole pulling down the posters and packing up, that's my opportunity to like reflect on the workshop and how it went. But now it's like, you just like, everyone just like hits the end button, and you're back into your room, and you don't really have that sort of commute time to think it through. Yes. How do you reflect on how your workshops went?
Well, we have that's something we've created for all our trainers, myself included. We've got a team now that we're building up, and we've got a trainer report form. We call it, God, that's a dry name. We should call it something more interesting. But it's a self-reflection tool. And yeah, so we ask things like, and everywhere it's like kind of, that is compulsory when you finish the session. First of all, you would debrief with your team, because you're not the only one. So yes, all your participants have click the red end button, but you're always left with a team of 3. You've got your emotional support person there and your tech support. So together you have a debrief. What went well? Did the emotional support person need to support anybody in the group? How did we all feel that went? And then the trainer can even say, and can I have some feedback from you guys if they feel they want that? And of course, all feedback is a gift, so we encourage it. And then yes, the trainer would go on to complete this online form, which is just a few questions, but yes, it's what went well, what would I have done differently. We do a scaling question of how engaged did you feel the group were with you, because it's so much about engagement, isn't it? The training's only as good as the delivery. I'm really proud of this 90 minutes that we've created in terms of the content, but it's a completely different experience depending on who you get. So we're really sort of focusing a lot on that, group engagement. And yes, what could I do differently, but also what do I need from my team to get there, and what do I need to do myself personally? So there's quite a lot of reflection.
Yeah, those are awesome questions. I should make them mandatory for myself. If I don't have a tech or emotional, I would love to have an emotional support person on every Zoom call. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that's right.
But I like that you're also
support for the group, but also for the trainer as well.
Yeah,
it's ways.
It's also nice to have that question on how engaged do you think the group was, and then balance it up with like the feedback that you're receiving as well, because like you said, all feedback is a gift, and it's nice to have just do that sort of temp check that you spoke about before. When I reached out to you, I asked you what a couple of topics you want to talk about, and one thing that you mentioned was the abundance mindset. And I just wonder if you could just share a bit on why that topic really spoke to you, and what you wanted to share with our listeners on that.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah, I wrote that on a real whim, but it was very poignant to me at the time. It still is. It's around.
Awesome.
And I guess there's something about, especially this last year, I've just felt like there's been a real sort of scramble for attention. There's a lot of noise online. We're spending more time on the screens than ever before. and I don't know about you, but I am getting a lot of targeted ads for,
Big
do this
time.
course, do this course. There's so much online course training, of course, because that's how we can train. That's how we train now. And because we can reach people all over the world. And I guess it just it makes me feel anxious. I think, oh God, I've had moments of, oh God, should I be doing that? Should I be doing these
Yes.
targeted ads? And there's that sort of, as if, what's the opposite of the abundance? The scarcity mindset, as if there's like a finite number of people who need this sort of training. And when I apply it to my own training, suicide prevention skills, like you said, it's niche, but it's not, it's universal. And when I used to go to parties, remember fun? When I used to go to parties or the pub, and if people do say, what do you do? It's mine's a sort of either a conversation starter or a conversation killer, but I teach people to talk about suicide. Most of the time people go, oh my God, we need that. I work in a drama school and our kids are struggling, or I work in a this. And anyway, what my point is that there's a need. Like, everyone needs this stuff.
Yes.
And in fact, whatever we're training in, and I'm sure you've got listeners training in, gosh, all sorts of topics, right? If you've got a skill, if you've got something to impart, people need it. Like, you're not, you haven't got a small number of people that need it. And so I guess it leads me to just focusing on collaboration over competition. I'm not of the mindset that, these are my clients and I'm going to teach these people and you can teach them, or let me have that, that horrible, ugly sort of people. I think you attract the people that need you, and vice versa, right? So we just find, as long as we're putting our true selves out into the universe, I don't want to sound too woo-woo, but I think there's something
woo-woo. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think we're just honest about who we are. People who feel that and connect with that come to us, and vice versa. And there's just so many people on this planet that there is an abundance. There is so much and so many, people. And when it comes to these skills, they can do several courses. It doesn't matter. There's no sort of limit.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're right. Like, social media definitely it's really hard to not compare yourself. I remember scrolling through, was it Instagram or LinkedIn? And I think I saw someone with a gig, and I was like, I had that kind of, that scarcity thing pulled me, and I sort of woke up like, come on, Leanne, that's not helpful. That doesn't serve you. And then I was thinking of like that gig, and I was like, I wouldn't have wanted that anyway. Like, it just sort of puts into your mind things that you don't even, if you actually could choose it, you wouldn't choose it, but you think because people are doing it, you need to do it too.
That's it. Yeah,
I think a lot of
fear of missing out. And it's sort of been replaced. It used to be like, oh God, they're going to things that I want to be going to, and now of course there's nothing going on. So now it's more the sort of, oh, should I be doing what they're doing with their business?
And
no, I shouldn't, because there's enough work for everyone. And and I don't know about you, but I'm not in this for the money. It's not like, it's for the love, right? I don't know. That's what I mean. And I just think, if I can earn enough to get food on my table, anything else is a bonus. So yeah, there's enough going on to keep everybody busy.
100%
in this field. Yeah.
Oh, there is. And particularly, I mean, look at the stats for mental health now. It's unbelievable. It's so sad. Like, just it's sad to say it is a booming industry, but if you look at the data, it's just so, I mean, that's a lot of the reason why I got you on the show as well, is because I haven't really spoken about mental health on this show. I have in the context of our own energy as facilitators and handling that, but not in terms of the work that you do. So it's very topical.
Yeah. It's very sad that it is a booming industry. And I guess it's a bit like when I was working as a counsellor, I'd start seeing a client, and it's interesting with that sort of work, you're working to make yourself redundant. Like, I'm seeing a client for, say, 6 sessions, 12 sessions. My hope is that after 12 sessions, or, a couple of months, that they don't need me anymore. It's like almost being a parent, you're sort of doing yourself out of a job. You don't want to be needed. And that's what I'm doing with this sort of work. But I just know that I won't train everybody in the world. I'd love to. I'd love to get in front of everybody in the world at some point. TED Talk, love to.
Of course. I can see you on that.
Let's just put it out there. But they're just, my hope is that everybody just has these skills, that we can talk about suicide, and it's taught in schools and stuff, and then I don't need to be doing this. I can go and, I don't know, live on a retreat somewhere instead. Forget about all this.
That's amazing. So Rose, any advice for first-time facilitators, people that they have expertise? They might be a counsellor, they could be an accountant, and they're now delivering workshops. What advice would you give to them?
Oh, yeah. I guess some of it I covered earlier. It's like, if you're a new facilitator going in front of a group of people, whether that's online or face to face, see them as people. I don't subscribe to this idea of imagine them naked, or
Oh, yeah, no, I've never done that.
Make you feel more confident. That would make me feel a bit odd. So I guess just see them as real people, and that they're people to connect with, and that they're people who have I think too often I see new facilitators coming in and they're so nervous that they do pitch themselves almost as the expert, and then it can disempower. It's quite disrespectful to the group, because they're like, I sort of know some of this stuff you're teaching me. It's still valid that I'm here because I'm going to learn something new, but even just these little nuggets. So I think as a facilitator, just trusting and finding out first, what is it that you do already know, and where are your gaps, and how can I help with this? And comfort as well. So like thinking about your group's comfort, and you can obviously do that on Zoom as well, so inviting people to have a stretch, inviting them to have water, but really including yourself in that as well. Like self-care just needs not to be a buzzword, or what did you say, something about no buzzwords, minimal,
maximum, really, minimum buzzwords.
That's it. I love that, because it's, especially with things like self-care, it's almost like a tick box now, that people think, oh well, I'll work really, really hard, get myself really stressed, and then I'll have a bubble bath at the end of the day, and that's my self-care. Like, that's not how it works.
No.
Self-care is, right, it's how you make your cup of tea in the morning, it's how you put your tea bag in the teacup, it's like all these little steps. It's walking a different way to the shops each time because there's something new to see, and I don't know, there's so much more to looking after ourselves. And I think as a facilitator, when we're encouraging our group to be relaxed, we are part of that group as well. Seeing ourselves as a part of a group.
Actually, Mark Bowden, he's an expert in body language. He kept saying, like, you are the strongest signal in the room. However, whatever you're like, you'll reflect that. So and I remember, like, when I was back at early days of facilitation, I was scurrying around, like changing the PowerPoint, and that would have just created a sense of urgency with the people there. I love your approach to self-care as well, Matt. It's like a way of living rather than a bubble bath. A guy called Sean D'Souza, who I'm friends with, he has an awesome marketing business called Psychotactics, but he says you've always got to have time, and this is his own self-care thing, you've always got to have time in your day to drink coffee out of a mug and not a takeaway cup. And it's good for the environment, but also just good for this time. So
I can subscribe to that. I really love that. Yeah, that's a nice way of thinking about things.
It is. Yeah. Am I too busy to drink coffee out of a mug?
And it's so much more pleasurable as well.
Oh, it is. Big time. You just get to sit there and hopefully not have your phone. I'm giving myself advice here.
Yes, I need this advice too.
Yeah, that's it. I'll have to listen to this again. Rose, it's been awesome to have you on the show and sharing, like a deep topic, but tackling it in a way that makes it very accessible for people. I think they often say facilitation is to make easy, and I think that's what your program is doing. It's making this complex topic of suicide more accessible and easier for us to digest, and then to help someone else. So thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, first of all. And secondly, thanks for sharing your knowledge today. If our listeners would love to find out more about your workshops, about you, connect with you, where should we send them?
The easiest way to go to find me is my website, which is starttheconversation.uk, just .uk, and then click online training, and you'll find all about my 90-minute program with Ollie's Future, the charity that I partner with on that, and a number of other pieces of work that I do as well. So do find me through there.
Check out the website. It's really cool. I love the branding. You can see all of your team members. You've accumulated a big team. Well done to you. That's so great to see.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Leanne. Yeah, it's so nice to talk to you. I could have done this for hours.
Do a Joe Rogan type show next time. Thanks, Rose.
Maybe.